How's it going, movie lovers? My name's Terry, and I'm here to talk to you today about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is about an actor and his stunt double driver who are past their prime. Leonardo DiCaprio plays the actor, Rick Dalton, and Brad Pitt plays the stunt double, Cliff Booth. These two guys became friends when working on a Western TV show back in the day. Now, Cliff has trouble getting a job, but is not as bothered by it as Rick. Rick wants to be known as a big Hollywood actor. He's protective over his status that he already has, which is why he's protective of his home in the Hollywood Hills. Rick notices that some younger celebrities have moved in next door and remarks how this could be his big break into the new Hollywood that Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski represent. While watching the struggles that Rick goes through with his career, we see the final months of Sharon Tate's life before that fateful night. We also see Cliff accidentally come into contact with the Manson family while they were staying at Spahn Ranch. In real life, the Manson family actually stayed at Spahn Ranch, which was an old Western set used in films. One of the women in the family seduced the man looking after the ranch and convinced him to let them stay. When Cliff shows up after giving a hitchhiker who was a part of the Manson family a ride back, he realized that he used to film there and knew the owner. Seeing the group of hippies that were living there, he thought something was up and asked to see his friend George Spahn. The family became agitated and tried to shoo him away, but he insisted. This brought on a lot of tension to the screen as our hero is alone in the midst of some creepy hippies who we know can be very violent. Ultimately, our hero is fine. He's an actual stuntman who are known for taking hits and doing the cool fights that we see in movies. We also see him fight Bruce Lee earlier on in the movie, so we know he can hold his own. Since he can fight, he was able to beat up one of the hippies who slashed his tires and was able to leave the farm safely. Now, early on in the movie, we see Charles Manson make his only appearance, which was to stake out the house that Roman Polanski and his wife, Sharon Tate, were renting. That house belongs to the music producer named Terry Melcher. Manson went to Melcher with a recording opportunity, and Melcher turned him down. Manson then held a grudge against him. When Manson saw that two known celebrities were staying there, he thought that this would be the best time to enact his plan of killing these celebrities in brutal ways. Manson wanted to start a racial war by brutally murdering these people and making it look like, in his own words, witchy. He thought that the violent acts and disturbing murders would cause a race war to begin. Now, back to the movie, the glimpses into Sharon Tate's life and the suspenseful scenes with the Manson family hint at the murders, which puts the audience on edge. As the movie follows Rick and Cliff, the feeling of violence looms over the audience. Those of us who know Tarantino movies know that murder and violence are usually right around the corner. The fact that there isn't a lot in this movie shows that something is going to happen. So along with the violent murders of Sharon Tate and her friends, and the fact that Tarantino is violent in his movies, the longer we go without blood and violence, the more anxious Tarantino fans feel, since they know that it's coming. The movie shifts from a setup and payoff style to a timeline of events on the night of Sharon Tate and her friends' murders. The audience knows that there's going to be violence. As the Manson family, soon-to-be murderers, drive up to see the house, Rick sees them and goes outside to scare the hippies away, since he's protective over his status. As they leave, they realize that that was the great Rick Dalton that they idolized as the gunslinging American cowboy, Jake Cahill, from Bounty Law. They remembered growing up and watching that show. They then decide to go after Rick, since he represents the culture that raised them to be violent murderers that they are, or will be. They park their car away from the house, and when they get back to the house, they find Cliff in the living room trying to feed his dog, but smoked an kind of having cigarette. A hard time which he got from one of the hippies earlier on in the movie. Now, Cliff and his dog have a very special bond. Cliff trained him to do normal commands and also protect him. We can actually see Cliff and Brandy practicing earlier on in the movie. Even though we know Cliff can fight and Brandy is a strong dog that'll do anything to protect his owner, we're still scared because we saw Cliff struggling to open dog food. By the time the Manson family get back to the house, Rick is in the pool listening to music and his wife is asleep in bed. Cliff is the only one in the living room by the front door that the Manson family kicks down. Cliff asks what they're doing, to which Tex replies, "I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business," which is something that he actually said to one of the victims on the actual night. After some funny moments that barely relieves the tremendous tension that the audience is feeling at this moment, the violence starts. Right before Tex decides to shoot him, Cliff makes a clicking noise with his mouth that tells Brandy to attack the intruder. All-out chaos ensues as Cliff and Brandy fight off the intruders. Rick manages to get the last one after she just barely gets out of the house and into the pool on accident. She's in so much pain that she flails around screaming and bleeding. Rick, who is rightly freaked out by this psycho screaming in his pool while holding a gun, takes the time to run into the poolside shed and pull out a relic from a movie that he filmed. In that movie, he torched a bunch of Nazis with a flamethrower and repeatedly remarks throughout this movie that he actually learned how to use a flamethrower for that. He then lights her on fire using it. This culminates in the Manson family's death and survival of our heroes, along with Sharon Tate and her friends. The movie ends with Rick and Jay Sebring having a conversation about the events that night. Jay was surprised to see all of the ambulances and cop cars sitting around his house and asked Rick what was going on. In the end, Rick got what he wanted, which was a meeting with Sharon Tate. This culminates in the old Hollywood meeting the new Hollywood and living a happy life. That's why this movie is a fairy tale. It's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because it's what could have happened that night instead of the tragic death and the shift in America from the happy days to some gloomy, dark days. The last thing I'm going to bring up about this movie is the interesting actor-stuntman portrayal through the ending fight scene. Cliff does the dirty work and takes on 3 people and ends up killing 2 of them. Rick then swoops in at the end with the flourish of drama that actors add. But that's just my take on it. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week.